You might need glasses to read a street sign, but your ancestors could have spotted a threat from half a mile away. This isn't because their genetics were better. It's because you're living in a world your eyes were never designed for. This is the story of a historical detective case, a mystery of how we, as a species, seem to have lost our sharp vision. Every detective case starts with a witness. So picture ours, a hunter, standing at the edge of a grass plain 12,000 years ago, scanning the tree line for the flicker of movement that means predator, or prey, or water. He doesn't know it, but he's about to give us our first piece of evidence, because his eyes are doing something almost none of ours can do anymore. For him, sharp distance vision wasn't a nice to have. It was the price of staying alive one more day. Miss the flicker in the grass, and there's no second chance. And by our standards, his vision was extraordinary. When scientists have studied the few remaining populations still living traditional outdoor lifestyles, the results are staggering. Myopia rates sometimes below 5% compared to what you see around you every day. Many of these populations keep sharp distance vision well into adulthood, not just in youth. That's not a superpower. For most of human history, it was the default setting. An eye perfected over millions of years, tuned to an environment of wide open spaces and near constant natural light. That's our witness's testimony. Now here's the case. Something happened to the rest of us. Look around you. How many people do you know who don't wear glasses or contacts? In the United States, nearsightedness jumped from around 25% in the 1970s to over 42% by the early 2000s. Globally, projections suggest that by 2050, roughly half the world's population, nearly 5 billion people, could be nearsighted. That's evidence exhibit 1, a massive, species-wide shift happening in the blink of an evolutionary eye. And here's the first real clue in this case. It's happening far too fast to be genetic. Human genetics don't rewrite themselves in a couple of generations. Something in the environment did this. The question is what? Suspect number 1, near work. For most of human history, our ancestors did detailed close work, making tools, weaving, but their eyes weren't glued to something inches from their face for 8 hours a day. Think of your eye's focusing muscle like a fist. Clench it for a minute, fine. Clench it all day, and it cramps. That's exactly what we ask of our eyes now. Books, screens, phones, all within arm's reach for hours at a stretch. The first people in history to really feel this were medieval scribes and monks, hunched over manuscripts for a living. It's probably not a coincidence that the first wearable eyeglasses show up around the late 13th century in Italy, right as literacy and scholarship started to spread. That was the first moment in human history a significant number of people actually needed them. But near work alone doesn't fully explain what's happening today, because kids who read just as much but spend time outdoors don't show the same rates of myopia. So there's a second suspect. Call it the accomplice, the loss of the sky. We've become an indoor species, born indoors, schooled indoors, working indoors, relaxing indoors. And in doing that, we quietly cut our eyes off from something they need to grow correctly: real, bright, natural sunlight. Two suspects. One clear mechanism left to uncover. How does losing the sky actually change the shape of an eye? Here's where the clues start to connect. Most myopia isn't a problem with the lens, it's a problem of shape. A myopic eye has simply grown a little too long, so light focuses just in front of the retina instead of directly on it. Everything distant blurs. So what makes an eye grow too long? The answer involves dopamine, not the brain chemical you've heard about, but a signal used inside the eye itself. The retina uses dopamine to help regulate how much the eye grows during childhood. Here's the mechanism. Bright light, the kind you mostly only get outdoors, triggers the retina to release dopamine, which acts as a stop growing signal. It's the eye's internal brake. Now here's the part that makes the whole case click into place. A well-lit room can still be dozens, sometimes hundreds of times dimmer than a sunny day outside. Under that dim, artificial light, the retina's dopamine output drops. The stop signal never fires as strongly as it should. Without that break, the eye just keeps elongating, past where it should have stopped. Case cracked. This isn't a genetic flaw, it's a mismatch. We took an eye built for sun-drenched open plains and put it in a dim, cramped digital box, and the eye did exactly what it was built to do in response to that environment. Just not the response we wanted. Here's the twist most people miss in this story. It's easy to assume that before glasses, poor vision meant a death sentence, but a small number of ancient humans were probably nearsighted too, and their story isn't what you'd expect. They likely couldn't be the primary hunters, but that same blurry distance eye is often unusually sharp at close range, and there's real evidence some of these individuals became the group's best toolmakers, menders, and healers, doing the kind of fine, close-up work that a sharp distance hunter's eye actually struggles with. Centuries later, some medieval monks doing painstakingly detailed manuscript illumination are believed to have had unusually high rates of myopia too, and some monasteries may have valued it for exactly that reason. For most of history, that's how the case stayed closed. Not because myopia was fixed, but because it found a role. The Romans used glass bowls of water to magnify text. Monks used polished reading stones, tools, not corrections. The real break in the case came from northern Italy in the late 13th century. The first wearable eyeglasses, two lenses riveted together and perched on the nose. For the first time, humans could actually correct focus instead of adapting around it. It let scholars read into old age and craftsmen work with more precision, and without anyone realizing it, made it that much easier to spend even more time indoors. So why did your ancestors have superhuman vision? The truth is, they didn't. They had human vision, developing exactly as it was meant to in its natural environment. The real question is why our vision today seems so fallible. The answer isn't just in our genes, though genetics plays a role in who's predisposed. The answer is in our cages. Comfortable, climate-controlled, well-lit, screen-filled cages. The explosion of myopia isn't a failure of our biology. It's a predictable response of our biology to a profoundly unnatural environment. Our eyes aren't broken. They're adapting to the world we've built. The blurriness we see when we look to the horizon is the fingerprint of a species that used to live by looking out and now lives by looking down. If this story changed the way you look at the world, literally, consider liking this video and subscribing for more journeys into science, history, and the hidden forces that shape our lives.